Hello friends, welcome to the new episode of New Tech Dojo. This episode we are learning why are top multinational companies hiring Power BI professionals. With me I have Christian Berg. Hi Christian.
Good day, how are you? Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm doing good, thanks. Christian is the group product manager for business intelligence and analytics at Microsoft. He's responsible for customer success for the Power BI product with a focus on R, Cortana Intelligence Suite, Azure Machine Learning Studio, and AI integration. Christian is actually a wide thought leader in the Power BI. I saw a couple of his blog posts in the Power BI community. Few of them had more than 10,000 views. Things such as strategic decision support through business driver analysis, quantifying business impact from previous investments. Christian has been with Microsoft since some time. He's been the chief of staff finance for North America and senior business controller before this role. He's a management graduate with the London Business School, and surprisingly, he's got an interesting role before that. He was a sergeant for the Swedish military. Christian, I mean, we would love to start. How did you get from Swedish military to something which is as high tech as business intelligence?
Well, I don't know. There are times when the Swedish military can be fairly high tech too, but I think the red thread the red thread throughout my career has been scientific management. I think it's so meaningful to try and find ways to make things more efficiently. I think as we become better and better at doing things, it's so important that we learn how to efficiently build on each other's work and also to build on past experiences. So with more and more experiments, with more and more customer interactions available, the challenge, right, like to make the most of all those interactions, to really be able to identify what we could learn from those becomes, even more valuable. So, you know, yeah, it was a nice summary, right? But I think as you look at my career, like from the military to software engineering, management consulting, the MBA, and then finance, business controlling, also squeezed in like private equity work in between there, and then landing this job where I'm currently at. All of those things have been driven by that passion to try and work out how can we run complex organizations more efficiently.
Interesting, interesting. So let's get started with Power BI. So since you've been managing and leading the thought leadership of Power BI, why do you think Power BI is so popular?
Well, I think one thing that it does well, right, is that it's a low bar to entry. Like anyone can go to powerbi.com and download the Power BI desktop client for free, and that that product allows you to connect to different data sources, quickly kind of mash them up, join them, and then really start producing interactive visualizations and analyzing that data. So I think that part is really nice, right? It's easy for anyone to get to know the product. And I think especially right, like new users with some familiarity of Excel or other Office products will find it quite familiar right from the start. And
Right.
then I think the vision that Power BI should be a platform rather than a standard kind of BI tool also plays into its success. So it's a very low bar to entry. You can do your kind of standard descriptive analytics, your visualizations inside Power BI, but then there's really no limit like how complex you want to make it. And if you're a star data scientist, if you're a professor in modeling, you can bring your Python, your R scripts into Power BI and start doing analytics, complex analytics directly on the platform. Similarly, if you're more of a developer type of background and you want to create your own visualizations, you can either like take an existing D3 visualization or any one of the hundreds of visualizations that we have in the marketplace, customize it and make it your own. That kind of limitless kind of upper bound is also very valuable.
Sure, sure. But what I see when people think about Power BI, I mean, I know Microsoft Power BI is like Power Query, Power Pivot, Power View, and Power Maps. But a lot of people have this misconception that Power BI is just the end visualization tool, I mean, which is so easy to drag and drop, but they fail to understand that Power Pivot is actually the brain behind Power BI.
Yeah, well, so the background story is exactly that, right? We started off with Power Pivot in Excel,
Mm-hmm.
which was a big data or a medium-sized data capability inside your Excel workbook that gave you column indexes and smart compression. And then from that came Power View, which was that interactive visualization capability. Power Maps is kind of like its own path.
Mm-hmm.
But Power BI is really like a standalone product, and with it we changed it. So the engine behind Power BI is analysis services. So that is the big data kind of reporting engine that powers all your Power BI reports.
Right. Right. And what
And
I
you can see that you can even like sorry.
sorry, go on, go on.
I was going to say, you can see that too, right? If you build a Power BI data model, you can export that out as an analysis services model.
Right, right, right. And I mean, what I see right now, even on the job post everywhere, is the current wave of BI is limited to multinational companies, which are like huge data bank, huge data sets. Uh, you think this will come to mid market or I mean small cap companies in the future?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, I think like a very generic way of thinking about BI as an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
is the difference in value between a good decision and a bad decision times the number of decisions that you make. Right? And a decision in this case can be almost anything, right? Like be it a customer transaction interaction, be it any negotiation. It's really just about like is there an action where there's any ambivalence about any uncertainty around like what the best course is?
Mm-hmm.
Well, is there a business case for BI? But then the question is, what do we think the difference in value would be, right, between making the right decision and making the wrong decision? How often do we make this decision? And then we subtract out the cost of the BI. And of course, the cost of the BI capability is typically fixed for any given scenario. Like the variable cost component is very small.
Correct.
So that obviously means, right, that for big companies, it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
They have thousands of really good business cases. I That said, though, I can't imagine there are many companies in the world that doesn't have a couple of business cases where a couple of very valid business cases for BI. Like even like one, two-person kind of company
Mm-hmm.
probably has a couple of uncertainties, and for a company that size, the BI investment is negligible. And also, right, like what works for mid and small companies is that they tend to be newer, so they have fewer legacy systems. With more modern kind of IT environments, the cost of extracting the data is negligible. So I do understand why the big companies were kind of the first ones to jump on board,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's just the technology and the mindset maturing, and I'm sure that it will be as common in mid and small companies before long.
Okay. And what kind of data can be used by Power BI? Because what I see online, even when Microsoft publishes the case studies, it's mostly related to sales data or divisional data, which is, say, country-wise sales data or region-wise sales data. Uh, I mean, how useful is such kind of uh, Power BI for other domains, let's say supply chain or finance? You've been a financial controller before. What do you think the use cases are in finance?
So right now, I think Power BI is a very good tool for analyzing any kind of structured data,
Mm-hmm.
especially right like when it's you know fairly like well understood structured data. That said, it does come with powerful transform capabilities. You can run R scripts, Python scripts as part of that query editor, that Power Query kind of legacy experience. And also, we're making lots of investments here to make it more useful for unstructured data. So, be it like your Twitter data feeds or like free written customer reviews. You can do sentiment analysis on that. you can do translations, these kinds of things. So I think it's really about like any uh, structured data source or a lot of kind of like those kind of free text data sources can be adequately analyzed in Power BI. You mentioned finance as an example. Like I think it's just a coincidence really that you're seeing more sales examples than finance examples.
Right.
Finance departments tend to be the heaviest users.
Oh, I did.
I think it's nice to talk about. It's nice to talk to kind of sales scenarios, right? Because everyone can understand it, right? Kind of like, where am I seeing revenue? Who are my customers? How is that changing over time? Something like accounts payables, or bad invoices, or cash flow analysis, or working capital optimization models. It's just a bit harder to explain to your average user what they are and how they add value. And I think that's why you're not seeing so many examples of that in the public domain.
Right.
But like I said, like finance tends to be the heaviest user. So if you're interested in finance, I think Power BI is a great tool to have in your back pocket.
Can you show some few best practices for a Power BI dashboard? Maybe something on your screen which you can show right now. Like, what are the good practices anybody should keep in mind?
So I recommend, right, like for like you can use BI for so many different things. So what I would recommend if you want to get inspired and let me try sharing that again, and see examples of really good kind of designs, is to go to PowerBI.com and then go to the Solutions tab. So you have customer showcases which talks about value propositions to different customers. Then you have partner showcases, and Power BI has a thriving partner ecosystem with, I think, thousands of active partners who can help those big companies get started with Power BI, be it through training, be it through helping them with the data backend structuring. Many of them have published examples of their solutions there, and these are interactive Power BI reports that you can open directly in your browser. It's with dummy data, but you can explore it just as if you were an employee with that solution supporting you. Okay, I'll just talk through it then, right? So I think like those are excellent right, like resources to explore. So it's just PowerBI.com. Go to the Solutions tab. Customer showcases for more kind of in-depth reading. Partner showcases to interact with reports. And then also we have by department, finance examples, right? HR, sales, marketing examples. You also have an industries, so you can go there by industries. You also have something called solution templates, which I think are very interesting. They tend to be more complex solutions involving more than just Power BI in the back end. For instance, right, the Bing News, which using the cognitive services available in Azure, sets up an end-to-end capability that is triggered by keywords being published online that's picked up by the Bing crawler. It does sentiment analysis on it, it organizes it into different hierarchies, and then visualizes all these results in Power BI. So you can explore those with dummy data, or deploy them with just a couple of clicks for your scenario if you have an Azure subscription. And then finally, like the data storage, I think is also a great resource for inspiration, which is in that same place under Power BI. .com on the Solutions tab. And data storage is written by our community. So also from the PowerBI.com site, if you go to Learn, you can navigate to the community. So we have hundreds of thousands of people who are sharing best practices in that community in kind of like a blog way. Often like uploading complete reports to illustrate their points.
Can you take us through 2 or 3 good practices which you think a professional should be ready with?
Yes, well, I think like things that always help me is to think about the actions that you want to inform. So what I mean by that is, rather than, because it's so easy to analyze vast flows of data with Power BI, but if your end user is someone who's time constrained, who just want to, quickly get insights to make one or two decisions, you also want to, think about like, how can I create one page, one user interface, which is very simple, which is just targeted towards that decision process. So say that they're weighing, costs versus customer satisfaction and maybe expected long-term revenue. Well, those are the three kind of key KPIs right up front. And then we want to think about, how does uncertainty maybe, right, like in that kind of scenario, play into the decision. So then you want to visualize the uncertainty under each. And then probably, right, like you don't want to give them tons of statistics, so you want to give that kind of business user an interactive way with maybe like somewhat its parameters to alternate between different decisions that they may or may not want to make, and then see the results of that to get an intuitive understanding for their business. So that would be my first advice. That's action-oriented design, and just taking back like on the design element too. Right? Like when you build a Power BI report, in many ways, right, when you're serving it up for business users, it's almost like you're building your own software. So think about customer stories. Think about the narrative in which like those business users will use this report, and I think that will really help you. It's a lot like preparing a presentation, right, for a big audience. Like think about who's in that audience, right, and what do they care about. Just to make sure, right, that you don't overwhelm them just with data and information. The other thing I think about, or I think it's important, right, is the data agency. So, we very often either build BI reports because something might be interesting, or we do it because we think it will be valuable. In the case of the latter, right, when we think something would be valuable, it's important to think about, do we even have enough data to support this type of decision, right? Like a simple example, like pricing. Right? Say that you wanted to optimize your pricing. Well, that might be very feasible, right? Assuming that you made some random changes to your price in the past that you can think are representative in terms of the elasticity of demand. But assuming that you've never changed your price, it's very hard, right, to make anything from your own data. I mean, you can draw some conclusions by getting market share data, but absent that might not be the low-hanging fruit where you want to start with your BI investments. If that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. And where do generally most of the BI analysts fail? I mean, what are the common pitfalls in your opinion?
Well, I think a common problem, right, is that they spend their time looking at things that might be interesting without that clarity on how will this add value to the business.
Right.
I think that would be the main thing. And the second thing I think is that a disconnect between an analyst's world and a P&L owner's world. So like if you're the P&L owner, you have to make decisions based on this data. You're betting your career on these decisions. You have a very different mindset, and you come from a very different place than someone who spends all their time diving deep on the data. Right. And also, like when you are that expert analyst, you have so much more information, right? Like you know that data so much better than any business user. On the other hand, like what the business users have come with, right, is that qualitative perspective. So they may very often, right, like find flaws in the analysis just because they just check these numbers with their gut feel, with their instincts, going, well, I don't know, like this is not what I heard from that last customer that I just spoke with, and they might find like that flaw in your analysis potentially, or like it's just a case, right, of an exception. But I think like that kind of tailoring to the audience, and also like not underinvesting in the relationship, right? I think a good analyst needs to spend a lot of time with the business. They should know what the business leaders care about. Like they should sit in on those, important kind of strategizing meetings so that they know what's important. They know what decisions are coming up, and they know, where they should focus their research or their analysis.
That's great advice. And what do you think are the prerequisites for learning Power BI? Because most of people who are say good at Excel or say good at SQL, are they best suited for Power BI, like on the analyst side?
Well, so the script was actually put it, the simplest way, right, to build custom calculations inside Power BI
Mm,
is done with DAX,
mm,
and DAX is very similar to Excel formulas. So if you're a Power Excel user, you will have a lot of benefits from that knowledge when you're building your Power BI reports.
mhm.
That said, DAX isn't very difficult to learn. Right? What should I put it? It's a whole scale, right? You can dedicate a lifetime, right, to becoming like the best in the world at DAX, and it would not be time wasted. But that said, most people can become quite proficient in an hour or two. So it's a very broad range.
Mhm. Um,
I would say the main challenge with Power BI is becoming a good report designer. That
right.
is that is really hard part, right? Like, it's not difficult to make these visualizations. The difficult thing is building a combination of visualizations that supports a typical thought process for an end user.
Right.
And you see it, right? Like it's the art of data visualization, right? You see people are good at it, and you'll find lots of examples of that when you go to our online examples,
Hmm.
and it's amazing what they can do. They create these things which are just intuitive, and they point you very clearly in a certain direction, and it's a great value add.
I think
Uh,
visualization is not just science, right? It's also some form of art too.
yes, yes, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
then the art of storytelling and all do really matter. Like same, how do we do it in presentations?
Yes, yes.
Mm,
And that's like the art of storytelling is something that often comes up. Um, a lot of people find it much easier to make decisions when you give them the richness and wealth of a compelling story.
right.
That said, storytelling is kind of the opposite of data-driven decision making,
Mm,
right?
right.
Which I think those should be just bear that in mind. A good compromise I find is first look at the data,
Mm,
right? Draw your conclusions, and then present the data with the story. So you talk about like customer journey, you talk about like where you have a gap in your customer experience,
mm,
and then you illustrate that with a story. But like first start with the data, and then make it memorable with a specific customer story, and that's where you can go into like user X whom I spoke to, right, and this was her experience,
mm.
and it becomes very memorable for everyone. Uh, but often, right, like bad decision making happens when we focus too much on a single user story just because it's compelling.
Mm, understood. Um, and I've been looking at a lot of new updates coming up with Power BI, especially on every fortnight basis. Actually, I mean, last update which I saw was uh, they basically you put it in a natural way, like how you speak to a chatbot on, hey, what is my sales versus the last year's uh, sales, and which region is doing better than, like more intuitive than regular GUI based drag and drop. So
Mhm.
what do you think? Which direction is Power BI heading? Is machine learning the new way?
So AI and machine learning will continue to evolve the product, and we're adding more and more kind of cognitive capabilities to the product.
Hmm.
That said, there's I don't foresee a future where you can't like build that report exactly as you want it using drag and drop as well.
Mm.
right? It will be two capabilities, and potentially, right, like two different user groups. It might be that designer has a very specific idea about how they want to create a visualization. Will still create it with all of the menus and toolboxes and tool sets that we offer,
Mm-hmm.
whilst the business user who just wants to customize the visualization to filter down on their scope of the business might use natural language for that filtering, or just to change the standard visualization.
Right. You had also mentioned in your profile that focus is on Cortana and R, especially which is linked to Power BI. Can we use the R programming language within Power BI too?
Yes, so R and Python are supported throughout the product. So it starts as a connector. You can use R or Python as a connector
Mm-hmm.
to connect to another data source. Then in the query editor, you can use them to transform the data. And I think that can be very powerful. Not just transform it, you can make calculations using these script languages as well. So, for instance, you could imagine, right, like running a regression, or doing like a k nearest calculation as
Sure,
part of that query,
sure.
and that will then rerun like every time you refresh a report. And then finally, you have the option of using either R or Python on the visualization layer, so you can create very easily with just a single click, right? Like add a Python or an R visual to your report,
Mm.
and then you script that visualization. But all the logic behind it is still supported and empowered by the Power BI engine. So when someone interacts with another visualization, that will still refresh that and rerun that script that you put on your R visual.
Got it, got it. I think Power BI, I think they're beating down Tableau any day, and I think they'll continue to beat down Tableau in the future too.
Yes, possibly, possibly. Tableau is also a great product, but yeah, we've seen a lot of growth for Power BI.
One last question. So there are a lot of MBA grads who are now hunting for analytics or the BI role. What would be your advice to them? How should they prepare for this role?
Well, I think it's a natural evolution, right? I think the business context that you learn with an MBA is very helpful. It
Mm-hmm.
helps you prioritize. It helps you structure analytics. I mean, sometimes what you find, especially when you're talking about big data, is statistics is very valuable. So you know you hear that over and over again, right? But spending some time on brushing up or learning statistics is very powerful and very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Excellent advice. And what do you suggest in terms of technical skills apart from Power BI? What all skills should they be ready with when they join the industry?
Well, I mean, you can kind of the ecosystem, right, or the value chain, especially with big data, right? You have this. In theory, you can connect to most data sources directly with Power BI, but if you need a lot of transform, a lot of calculations on the back end, if you have, say, like systems output or something that isn't very readable for a human being,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you have a massive kind of value part of the value chain that I think is more of a data engineering job. Now, data engineers, they they add a lot of value, especially to big companies. So I think, right, like if you have that business background, you may just reconcile to the fact that you're probably going to need to collaborate with data engineers, especially for those big data scenarios,
Right.
and focus on the front end. And the front end is really, really very user friendly from a tool perspective. Like I think Power BI could be enough, even like just the basics for a lot of scenarios. Um, so I think like focus on getting at least like a basic understanding of statistics, learn the basics of a tool like Power BI, and then focus on understanding and keeping up to date on your business so you know what's important.
Great, great. Okay, that comes to the end of the show. Thank you so much, Christian, for taking our time. Really
Yeah, my
appreciate.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.